evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society.
Oh my goodness, we had such a blast. Jonathan Tarrant and I, if you put us together and we start talking, my goodness, interesting things transpire. I would like to welcome the amazing, the fabulous, the wonderful Jonathan Tarrant to this wonderful Meticulous Moments interview. I had such a wonderful time learning from you. Jonathan, you are just a breath of fresh air. And what you do is speaking to the needs of our contemporary time. Thank you for taking the time to share with me and for opening up your heart, your soul, your spirit, and your knowledge and your expertise so that the Meticulous Moments audience can benefit. I'm going to read what Jonathan writes on his Facebook profile. He says, I guide men out of their darkness into deep connection and self-discovery of who they were born to be. Enough said. Enjoy this interview.
Good evening, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another enlivening session where we facilitate here at the Meticulous Moments podcast community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Jonathan Tarrant. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm great, thanks, Juanita. I'm happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
Thank you so much for making the time for us. We really appreciate you. Now, I met you on Facebook and we've been conversing and we had a virtual coffee, and we are known to each other now. I just want to ask you, for the audience members who are not acquainted with you yet, would you just introduce yourself to them?
Absolutely, thanks. So my name's Jonathan Tarrant, as we know. I am a men's empowerment coach, and I'm also expanding that now into even bigger things. My passion, my focus right now is men's empowerment in any way that I can facilitate that, any tools that I can create to make it easier for men to feel good about themselves and to get themselves out of the sort of stereotypical man box. I've developed a lot of different tools and resources for men to do this, and I'm continuing to grow and continuing to really materialize like a grand vision that I had for a company that is centered around this concept.
I love what you do. I'm thinking, there's such a space for this. I actually had an interview with someone yesterday that also work with men. And I said to the guest speaker, you are also a guest speaker today. I said, there's so many more groups like this, individuals like yourself. And the person I interviewed yesterday, we need that. We need our men to be ministered to, because there's so many different misconceptions that have been transpiring over the last few years about manhood and what the role of a man is and what the conduct is supposed to be. Now, I went onto your Facebook profile and there's a lovely photo here of a man on a road, and the top says the slogan, or the caption says, men's freedom and empowerment. Find yourself, know yourself, and love yourself. That's phenomenal. Would you care to elaborate on that? That's beautifully said.
Thank you. Thank you. So where I'm coming from with statements like that is I'm coming from the knowledge and from the personal experience of finding myself really conflicted between who I thought I was supposed to be as a man and who I felt like on the inside. Right. And it seems to me, and frankly, I haven't met anyone that disagreed with me yet. It seems to me that men get typically cornered into, or corralled, you could say, into this sociological idea of what a man is supposed to be, what kind of behavior, what kind of emotional expression is a man allowed to show the world, right? So you could say the long and short of the story is that there is this concept of what a man is allowed to be and what he's not supposed to show. And within that box, within that construct, not only is it painful and harmful and incredibly difficult to maintain that limited manly image, right? But we do it to ourselves. It's like a self-perpetuating, self-reinforcing idea, right? If a man is not supposed to cry, and how many times have we heard that over the course of our life? So, suck it up, princess. Don't be a baby, right? So
yeah.
Generally, you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to really get deeply into your own feelings, right? That human beings are deeply emotional creatures. So because, let's say, to use myself as an example, because I'm not allowed to cry, I'm not allowed to express any kind of vulnerability, I don't want to see that from other men either, because I've never been taught how to deal with it. I've never been allowed to experience and explore that kind of thing. So when another man does it, I'm like, dude, shut that off. I don't want to see it. Right. So men are doing this to each other because none of us, I won't say none, but the majority of us are not given the space to learn how to process those feelings. Right. So we keep each other in the box as much as the rest of the world kind of expects us to be there. So when I talk about loving yourself, knowing yourself, and empowerment, what I mean is taking yourself out of that box and learning to understand that expressing, getting in touch with the deeper emotions, learning about vulnerability, and coming to appreciate that real vulnerability, strong vulnerability, is your most powerful state, right? So many people, men and women, function in the world, live their lives behind a mask, and the mask gives a certain degree of comfort, right? The mask gives a certain degree of protection, and yet the mask and the walls can be surprisingly fragile because you have to defend them all the time. You have to maintain those walls. But if you are just you, if you're good with who you are and you know who you are and you can just express and be yourself, you're indestructible. You don't need the walls.
Amazing approach. I absolutely love that. And I read here on your profile, you say, I guide men out of their darkness into deep connection and self-discovery of who they were born to be. That is almost poetic in a sense. It's beautiful to know that you labor with him, you walk with him, and you know, I'm sure when you work with people, Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, that you get to know them on a personal level.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I get to know me and that other man get to know each other perhaps better than we ever have known anybody else, right? Like, you understand? Like
I hear you.
I'm here. I'm in that place with a man who has perhaps never taken that deep dive into themselves yet, right? They're coming to me to discover who they are, and all of a sudden this new person is emerging, right? Or the person that they always had the idea was there. They always felt there was a bigger version of themselves inside, but that bigger version was so like encumbered with false ideas and notions of what's okay and what's not okay. And we just set all that free. And now that guy, that powerful king on the inside, is able to come out and be seen. It's a magical experience.
Amazing to see their lives transformed, to see them realize so many things about themselves. It's beautiful to note that that is even possible, and it gives the audience hope. Because I always say to the guests, when we are discussing the good stuff, the raw stuff, the real life happenings, I always say to them, that we're getting to that place where there's someone in the audience that needs to hear this. And I believe as we are sharing this wonderful session, and someone is going to watch this, and they are going to say, that is the idea I needed, that is the word I needed to hear, that is the encouragement that I received from Jonathan, and that just changed my life. Now I wanted to ask you, your leadership journey. You're a leader, you are someone that stands out of the crowd. That's how we connected. That's why I asked you onto Meticulous Moments, because I know your heart, and I know you are people driven. Tell me, where did your leadership journey start?
My leadership journey started because I had not been leading myself for so long. Yeah. Well, let me say that a different way. I was leading myself. However, I was leading myself using false ideas and misconceptions and incorrect beliefs about me. I led myself, but I led myself into a complete emotional collapse, right? That just destroyed the life that I was living. I lived a certain way with certain ideas for a long time, and I got married. I had children. We had a beautiful house. I had a great job. I had all the things that I thought I was supposed to acquire in order to achieve happiness, right? And having acquired all those things or created all those things, I found that I was increasingly miserable and frustrated, right? And I didn't know who I was. I never figured that out until much later, and I couldn't reconcile the fact that I had the life I thought I was supposed to want and was still miserable. And with all of these pieces, as I said, I basically fell apart. I just completely self-destructed and blew up everything. I lost my marriage, I lost my house, I lost that job, and I lost the respect, and connection with my kids. From that place, from seeing myself in pieces on the ground, I had to choose to get the hell up and take responsibility for my life and start making different choices and start throwing away the ideas and the beliefs that I could see so clearly at that point had led me into the destruction. And that's what I did. I picked myself up. I started doing the opposite of things that I'd been doing before. I started deeply challenging the ideas that I'd had about myself and saying, why did I ever believe that? Why did I ever allow that idea, which was clearly so incorrect? Why did I allow that idea or those ideas to inform my decisions in life? So basically, that was the start of it. That's where I began to step into a leadership role. That's where I had the inspiration to start working with other men and actually taking the experiences that I've had and sharing them with the rest of the world, right? Because for me, it was a profound change. And I was like, I can't keep this to myself. I have to share. And that's how it all began.
I thank you for that obedience to bringing this to the world. And there's a book that and we're talking worldviews, but if I can maybe bring it to the religious, because everything is intertwined. I have a book that I love to read by R.A. Klauser, and it's called The Myth of Religious Neutrality. And I think we can even put worldview into that sentence. The myth of worldview neutrality. There's no such thing. Okay. We all grow up in a different worldview. We all grow up in different family settings. We all have those preconceptions. What is astounding to me is that you step up to the plate and you bring your views to the fore and you help people, get rid of those preconceptions. So your leadership journey was written out for you. And I'm looking at some of the posts here, and I want to read something. You wrote the following. You said, let me just get a view where I can actually read it from there. There we go. You said, to all my brothers, imagine if all the answers you ever needed were there inside of you, just waiting to be discovered. I wonder if you realize that this is absolutely true. The key is to simply make the choice. And I agree with you. And then you write, choose to get uncomfortable in a new way. Mm-hmm. Choose to bravely follow the path inwards and take it all the way to freedom, no matter how difficult, ugly, and scary it may be. Discomfort is temporary once you commit to your own worth. That is amazing, amazing advice.
Thank you.
And that is something that you feel. You have posts. There are posts. I see lots of posts. But then there are posts that speak to your heart and your mind. And I feel you perfected that art. Now, I wanted to ask you, leadership quotes. What's your favorite leadership quote?
Yeah. What is my favorite leadership quote? I'll be honest with you, Juanita, I'm not really like a collector mentally. I'm not really a collector of quotes and details.
Yeah.
And at the moment I'll be honest, I'm kind of blanking for a powerful quote that really spoke to me. It's like,
there's so many out there.
There's so many, Indeed, there are. There's so many, and they come to me, and sometimes I'll save them. Let's say, like, they'll come to me as a text image on my phone or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, that's so good, and I'll save it, and then I'll move on. I collect a lot of this stuff, and I write an awful lot. And it's saved, on my computer. It's saved in my phone. It's mostly not saved in my head. I keep my head free to create.
I love that. I want to tell you a joke that I thought of now. Do you know who Tim Hawkins is?
Say again?
Do you know who Tim Hawkins is?
Tim? I don't think so.
He's, I think he's a comedian / public speaker / performer, but he has this one video. Okay. And there's a reason why I say that, because, I've been in the ministry for 15 years. And I would preach a sermon and I'd see my note says a certain scripture. And then at some point, if I didn't type out the scripture, I would not remember You can't remember all of the verses, so I would have to take my Bible and go there. But Tim Hawkins, he had a seminar, and he did the seminar in front of so many people. It was a spiritual, he was preaching, and he was helping people, through energy. And he got to a place where a lady came to him, and she gave him a piece of paper, and she said, please, just put your favorite Bible verse on this paper for me, and I'll go and do my Bible study. And he said he hit a blank because he knows his favorite verse, but he couldn't even think of the Bible book or the verse that day.
Sure.
And so he said, I will write it down for you. And pretty soon everybody in the room saw, he's giving out cards with his favorite Bible verse. And he's giving out these cards. And he's sitting there and he's like, Lord, I can't remember what it is. Can't remember my own. I'll send you the link. I can't remember my own, special favorite verse. Now he's thinking fast on his feet. He's got this event, he doesn't want to look like he's an amateur. And he just writes down a psalm. I don't know what it was. I think it was 37 or whatever. And he writes that to every single person in that auditorium. There's 100 plus people. Okay. Because he forgot now he's not even sure if it's that verse. And he drives home and he keeps saying to the Lord, Lord, please let that be a good verse. Because it's Old Testament, there were a lot of symbolism, and people were like attacking each other and fighting. And what he says, Lord, let it be a positive and uplifting verse. And he gets home and he opens his Bible and he sees this verse says, Lo, I have an illness in my loins. Pray for me or something like that. And he's like, my goodness, he wrote that verse on over 100 cards.
Oh, no.
And everybody's going to go home and they are going to look up that verse. And everybody's going to think that he's got some or other silly illness. My goodness, I laughed so much, Jonathan. And then he enacts this mom. He just imagines that he's in the house around a dinner table and this mom is talking to the kids, I went to the spiritual convention and this is what the man says, and he brought this card and this is the scripture. And then they have dinner, he pictures this, he draws this picture, and then he says, and then they have dinner and the mom takes the Bible. Because they're having communion at the table, the kitchen table. Okay. And she reads up this verse. And she reads, Lo, behold, I have an illness in my loins. And she has this fright because she thought he's going to give an uplifting verse. And meanwhile, he embarrassed himself. And it was just amazing how he was joking. And he said, she was like, I touched his hand, because everybody shook their hands. So it happens, it does. There's so many. How do we choose? Yeah. How do we choose?
I can tell you. I can tell you a quote from a song that sticks with me. That is one of my favorites. One of my current favorite quotes. If you want to hear that.
Yes, of course. And I'm going to look for it as well.
Okay. So there's a song that. It's a fairly current song, and one of the verses says, sometimes what you need is exactly what you fear. Sometimes what you need is exactly what you fear. And that statement blew me away the first time I heard this song. And it stuck with me.
It does, because it challenges us, to get out there. Mm-hmm. And, before
it aligns with some of the things that you quoted from me when I talk about getting uncomfortable. It is that. Get uncomfortable, get out of the comfort zone, scare yourself, challenge yourself. And you will find so much strength, power, and happiness on the other side of that. Usually, it's totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Absolutely. Wonderful quote and very, very true. and something that we can apply in our lives. I had a virtual coffee with someone a few minutes ago, an hour, I think it was at 10 p.m. my time. I don't know what that would be in Eastern Standard Time. It would be 3 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time. I had a lovely virtual coffee with someone, and we discussed the fact that fear is a part of leadership. And we discussed the fact that this man was putting up goals for himself, but if you would look at that, goal on the wall or wherever he wrote it or stuck the sticky note, he would be fearful. And I asked him, why are you fearful? And he says, because this is so much bigger than me. And I said, that's the wonderful part, because now God can step in.
That's
and
right.
He can assist you. So no, thank you for that answer. And I see here you have links on that post, and you refer to the inside look.
Yes.
What does that refer to?
Well, the Inside Look is a weekly email newsletter that I created. There's it goes. I initially wrote 52 different articles for this newsletter, and now it's ongoing. And the newsletter, as I said, it's an email, and it's kind of like a blog. It's just usually a pretty short article that throws challenging questions or interesting information, in related to the world of men. Some of the articles I wrote are just for fun, some of them are more like revealing a little bit more of myself and my interests and my personality, so we can feel like we know each other a little better. The newsletter also has like links to everything I've ever built or posted. It gives away, there's links to like free booklets and free like challenging resources for men. It's kind of everything all in one big newsletter. I'm actually super proud. I challenged myself to, speaking of fear and comfort, I challenged myself to write 52 articles for this, just because I wanted to cover a whole year. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was. Not hard. It wasn't hard. It was just like a pretty major time commitment. And it took a lot longer than I thought it would. And in the end, I'm very proud of myself for accomplishing my goal. And I'm really proud of the content that I put into these articles and the heart that is built in.
Absolutely beautiful. I can see from your answers and from just knowing you that you're a heart-centered servant leader, and that newsletter is making a difference. It's making an impact, because they open that magazine and they are confronted with God, and God just fixes everything. He's just amazing. I wanted to ask you, if you could spend a day with any famous person, who would it be and what would you be up to?
If I could spend a day with any famous person, I would. The first famous person that clearly comes to mind is Elon Musk. I would spend a day with that guy, with the slightest opportunity. I would do whatever it took to be able to spend a day with him. I know he's a bit of a controversial character at the moment. However, the things that he's accomplished are mind-blowing, and he is one of my heroes, that's for sure. So I would definitely spend a day with him. And we would go, if I had my way, we would go definitely have like a meal together, like a lunch or a dinner, and just hang out. And maybe do something crazy, like go to an amusement park or something like that. Just sort of.
I think you would love that, especially how his mind works. I saw a headline about something that he did. I'm not sure what he did, but he made headlines again. But just think of being in the presence of someone that has been working on that level, bringing all these wonderful inventions to people. I think that is
Exactly.
a fantastic choice. Fantastic choice. I wonder what he's really like, because we see him in the media, but we don't know him. Yeah, that's amazing.
Exactly.
Thank you for that lovely answer.
I mean, and also not even that, not only that he has brought all these amazing inventions to the world, and he's done all these incredible things, more so that he has fearlessly challenged convention. Right? He challenged the conventional opinion of the electric car, and he said, I'm going to do it anyway. He challenged the conventional notions and beliefs about the aerospace industry, what could or could not be done, what was practical, what was not practical. And he said, no, I'm going to do it my way anyway. And he did. And he did it. And he's done that over and over.
I love it. Absolutely authentic leadership there. I did a session, I forget who it was now, but the point that we made, our conclusion that we got after our session was that leaders don't necessarily choose the easy route.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders are people that discern which route to take, and they come out on the other end, for the better. Yep. So every time Elon says, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I think in that time and process that project is completed, he also goes through a lot, because there must be stress involved, all the deadlines.
Oh my God, yes.
I can imagine how stressful it must be. And I want to ask you, how do leaders deal with stress? How do you, for instance, deal with stress?
The way I see it, you have to accept that as part of the job, as part of the experience of life. If you are not feeling stress, if you are not second guessing your choices and your course from time to time, then you're probably not trying hard enough.
They do say difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations.
Mm-hmm.
And how will we develop our skill set if we don't go through those difficult times as leaders?
Exactly. Even for myself, I had pretty easy times for the first half of my life, right? Certainly not without challenge. Certainly, there was a lot for me growing up, right, that contributed to how I felt as a adult. That said, I wasn't living in poverty. I always had food. I always had a roof. I always, had clothes to go to school, right? I wasn't struggling per se.
A challenge is what
didn't make me the point there was that it just, all of that didn't ever challenge me enough for me to find my inner strength and to have to figure out who I was until I was challenged enough, until the universe showed up and finally kicked the shit out of me. Then I had to wake up and figure out who the hell I was going to be.
I love it. I want to share something with you. I don't know if I've shared that before, but life kicked the shit out of me in 2020.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what happened. I was going through so much because my mom was diagnosed with, I call it the 4 M's. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer, and they gave her 3 weeks to live. And we were going to be on lockdown for 3 weeks. So I couldn't reach her. So that was happening. My ministry was failing. My marriage was failing because my husband at the time was a pastor with me. And with COVID, he became completely disenchanted with the ministry. He didn't want to continue anymore. And of course, that influenced the relationship and everything. And I was busy with my master's in theology. So now it's COVID. I can't reach my invigilator. My mom is passing away. Things are hectic at the church because everything had to go online in a second. And then my marriage also started failing. And life really kicked me in the ass that year. Yeah. And I always tell people I love mosaic creations. When they take the broken glass, I also do mosaic. Take the broken glass and then you make something and you put grout in between and then you clean it and there you have your artwork. So I always say all of those things in my life had to collapse so that Meticulous could be born.
Right.
And if I look back now, it gave me mental muscles. It made me stronger. It worked on my innovation skills. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It made you tougher. And I think it allowed you to open more.
That it did. And how do you work? You work with the men, and how do you get them to open up to you? Because, I grew up in an era where men shouldn't cry. There were so many things hanging over manhood, that I thought at that time I believed it to be true when I was a small child. But as I grew up, I saw right through. So if you need someone to open up to you so that you can work with them, how do you help them to open up?
Well, let me say it's not about what I need, right? It's a path that every man must walk for themselves. My role is to walk with these men, right? And to lead by example, to demonstrate that you can discover your emotional depth. You can be vulnerable, and you can separate the idea of vulnerability and so-called weakness, right? You say vulnerability to a man, the first thing they think of is weakness and all of that, but it's not actually that way, right? So by being open, vulnerable, emotional, empathic, and strong, and without compromising, the idea of what a man should be, right? Like, let me say then, to rather than not compromising, to sort of embody the king that a man can find release and grow into within himself.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like it's a safe space. It's like, here, look at me. We're going to talk.
Safe space. Yeah.
Within the context of a conversation with another man, immediately that man will see me. He'll know that he's talking to the real me. He'll know that I don't care if he likes me or not. I don't care what his opinion of me is, because here I am, baby. I'm just going to tell you my story. I'm going to be me. I'm going to help you if I can, if you're open to it, right? And this is how it gets done. We have a conversation, and I lead by being that man. I like to say that I am now the man I always needed when I was younger.
Oh, that's beautiful. You've made it your life mission.
I have.
That's commendable, because you want to change lives, you want to assist, you want to help people to excel and exceed. And it's not easy to have an Instagram and a TikTok and put it out there. But what I like about what you do is you bring the raw things, you say it like it is. Mm-hmm. And all of that comes from a very good heart-centered place. Now, working with men, how old do you start doing the life coaching? Do you work with youngsters? Because I believe the youngsters are our next generation.
Absolutely.
Or how does that work for you?
I don't work with children, right? If that's what you mean by youngsters, I'm not qualified for that. I work with adults, right? Young adults, older guys. You could say anywhere from 25 up to any age at all. Typically the men that I'm talking to are in that kind of 30 to 40 range.
Good. Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting. That is the most important age for them to go through the training with you. And I'll tell you why I said that. It popped into my mind as you were speaking. Because at that time in their life, they have become, most of the time, fathers.
Mm-hmm.
They have kids in the home. They are husbands. And just getting that guidance from you to help them to open up, that is tremendous, because it will flicker out and cipher out to all the other areas of their lives. I had an interview yesterday, and the man ended, he said the following. He said, to the men, he addressed the men and he addressed the women, and he said, to the men, keep reminding yourself that it's not a bad thing to cry or to want or need help, to want to speak to someone. And remember, it's that part of who you were that made your wife fall in love with you. That softness, that kindness, that giving spirit. And then he spoke to the ladies on this side and he said, ladies, don't be harsh on your husbands. They are trying their best for you. Mm-hmm. And then he said to them, remember the reason you fell in love with him, because he was smart and kind and friendly. So I believe you bring all of that out of them in an important time, because the children are born into the families during the mostly 30s and 40s. And that goes over into the next generation. Being strong doesn't mean not crying.
No.
Being strong doesn't mean not speaking. Being strong means exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Cry if you need to cry. Speak if you need to speak. Yeah. Reach out. I heard of so many people committing suicide for various reasons. And I'm thinking to myself, they just needed that one person in their life that could give them a little bit of guidance. Yeah. Maybe they just needed that uplifting word. So your nature, I see you. I see what you do. You're a kind-hearted, soft personality, yet you are strong in what you do. You know, so you bring that balance. I see that in your life. And I know for sure that the people that work with you feel that. Because we want balance. How do we do work-life balance, Jonathan? Because I have yet to master that.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, the balance between the light and the dark, the hard and the soft. You know, I agree with I agree with your assessment of me. I am gentle. I am a kind-hearted person.
Yeah. And
at the same time, I will not tolerate bullshit from anybody.
Love it.
Because just because I'm a kind-hearted, patient, empathic, generous person, does not suggest that I am in any way soft. I have those qualities, and I also have I have my boundaries, right? And I know them very well. And if you disrespect my boundaries, well, that's it. Bye.
I love that.
This is part of the conversation, right? It's letting it be known that as a man, you can be all these things. You can be gentle. You can be kind-hearted. You can cry if you need to cry. And none of those things take away from you when you want to be the tough guy, when you want to go to the cottage and chop firewood, when you want to drive your whatever vehicle, way too fast and do crazy shit. That's all, like every facet of, being a human being who is male, they're all okay, and they all complement each other.
It's very important what you say about they all complement each other, because I have strengths and weaknesses. You have strengths and weaknesses. And it's lovely to see how when we start to network, when we start to create that psychological safe space that I mentioned, that people come together and they realize, oh, this person is better at this, let's say it's marketing, than I am. And this, the way that, and I feel like you facilitate that. You bring people together, you do that magnificently, because the people that you work with change, they excel, they exceed, they give it over to the next generation, and your work and this interview is going to have an impact on generations to come, because we are discussing difficult topics.
Yes.
And people are over that era where they didn't want to discuss difficult topics, where they just glossed over it, swept it under the carpet. Not now.
Nope.
Because we're bringing it to the fore. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know someone is listening in, and they need to hear this, and it will change their lives. So we're talking serious things. Let's talk a little bit about humor or something fun, just to create a little bit of a wave for us. What do you like to do on weekends?
What do I like to do on the weekends? Well, in the summertime, I do enjoy riding my skateboard. I have a really nice like long board, and I just cruise around on that. However, I mean, this summer I was doing that, and that's how I fractured my hip. So, that was fun until it wasn't fun. I also have a motorbike that I love to ride around on and go like way too fast on that. I'm a vehicles kind of a guy. Anything with wheels, you could say, kind of excites me. So I like to do that. I also like to go hiking barefoot in the woods. Honestly, I like to go to the pub with my buddies and chat and have a beer or two. I love to just soak up the sunshine. I love to travel.
Ooh,
I love to travel.
Love it.
I love good food. I love great music. All kinds of things.
You're a very colorful individual, because in life you'll find some people have one major thing that they do, but you and I are very alike, because there are multiple things that keep our attention. So hiking, of course, my goodness, one day when you come and visit South Africa, you have to go hiking with us.
Absolutely. I will hold you to that.
Absolutely. My door is always open. Just pop me a message, Jay. I'm on the plane, and I will see you in 2 hours, and I'll be like, yay, I'm going to cook you
coming.
some.
Get ready. Right?
Yeah. Amazing. And you must bring your skateboard, because I've got no idea how to ride a skateboard. So I'm going to let you teach me.
Okay. That's a date. I will.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm wondering, as life progresses, we have a leadership style. I look back over my own life when I just went into the corporate setting and into the ministry, because I always had multiple streams of income. I've always done that for myself. Okay. I'm thinking leadership. When I look back on my leadership skills when I was in my 20s, the way I approach things, for me, in my case, it changed over the years.
Okay.
I had a different leadership style and maybe much less patience than I do now, because now I can work with people and train them and lead them. But if you look over your life, and I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, but if you look over your own life, what was your leadership style, and did it change over the years?
I was about to say that it's changed dramatically over the years, but I think that that's not necessarily true. My I'm going to say that my leadership style has always been about leading by example, and I've always had the at some level I've always had the confidence to be like to avoid the need to be like the best, you know. Like some people will lead by crushing their followers and insisting that the things are done, you know, the leader's way. And like I said, I've typically been leading by example, you know, and by explaining. I'm the kind of guy that likes to understand why we're doing something, right? If there is a task or if there's something to accomplish, I like to understand the why, and that really helps me to get it done and sort of buy in. And I still do that, and I have always done that. So the thing that's also in my mind at the moment is that when I was younger, for almost the first half of my life, I didn't see myself as a leader. I didn't have much self-worth for the most part. I'm generalizing here, but generally my self-worth was very low. Generally, I did not see myself as a follower, or rather as a leader at all. And yet, interestingly, I did have a number of friends that I came to find out were following me, right? Even friends like one of my best friends, he had qualities. I saw in him strength and confidence that I didn't feel that I had. So I followed him.
Beautiful idea.
But what I didn't realize is that he saw all kinds of things in me, and he was following me. It's strange. So like,
iron sharpens iron. Yeah.
What's that?
Iron sharpens iron. We work together and we change and mix each other.
Yeah, it's just it was weird for me to find to learn that about him, because I always saw myself as the follower and him as the leader. And he described our relationship in a very different way, where he was frequently following me, and he was like embodying, he was doing his best to embody the example that I was portraying in various situations. And again, because my self-image was so crappy, I couldn't even imagine at the time that anybody would want to be like me or follow my example. And yet it was happening nonetheless. So that's why I'm thinking so much about your question of how has my leadership style changed. I think my actual base leadership style has not changed all that much. The difference now is that I have stepped into it. I have come to really know myself, and I have found that king inside of me, and he is alive and well and shining brightly. So I feel very different about myself now.
I think that's a phenomenal answer. You know, they say change is the only constant. The only thing that stays the same is that everything changes. And I think that's a good thing. You know, we can't stagnate and grow. But you articulated that so well. And I love the way I can sense, you know, that the way you work with people, they want to engage with you because you are peaceful. You know, when you bring the information out, it's peaceful. It's also joyous, you know, I feel the joy and I feel the peace and I feel the harmony. And that comes to me to self-leadership. And I want to ask you, what does self-leadership look like? If you had to think of any example.
Self-leadership really derives from knowing who you are, knowing your values, knowing what's important to you and what's not, knowing which lines you will cross and which ones you won't. You can't be a leader unless you're able to lead yourself, right? And if you don't know who you are and you don't know how to process your feelings and you're afraid that your mask might slip off, you can't really be a leader, right?
That's true.
I can be a leader if I choose to, right? Because I am no longer insecure, right? I can be a leader by giving you an example, and if you're inspired and you want to follow me, great, let's go. If you have other ideas and you think you know something different, great, go do that. Like, I don't need to enforce my leadership upon you, right? It's your choice. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to do things that I know or that I believe are best. If you can teach me something new or something different, I'm listening, right?
Teachable spirit, the teachable spirit. And as leaders, we always we keep on learning. We are committed to a life of learning and development, personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that wonderful answer. And I mean, I was just looking at the time and I thought, my goodness, an hour just flew by. And that's what happens when you are with like-minded people and you're sharing good, wholesome conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I have two last questions for you, Jonathan. And, I appreciate you so much. I'm having so much fun with you in this session. And I know this is going to have a huge impact on the audience. And my last two questions, and I'll ask them together so that you are able to formulate them the way you want to do that. My one question would be, what is next for you? Because I asked that because I want to know how we can support you, elevate you. And the second question would be, do you have any words of wisdom for the audience to leave them with so that they can take that into their week?
Great questions. Great questions. For me, what is next is building my ultimate vision, building the inspiration that I had a few years ago, which is a men's empowerment brand, you could say, a men's empowerment brand.
Love
right?
it.
What I am building is like the Nike of personal empowerment, personal mastery.
Love it.
Thank you. It's I won't say too much about it.
No.
I'm calling it Brothers and Kings. This is
Beautiful.
a brand that I'm building, and a big part of the motivation for building a brand around men's empowerment, around personal mastery, is because my experience in the past was that sort of self-help and what's the word? Counseling. Basically, resources for men who need somebody to talk to, in my experience, were difficult to find, few and far between, and of questionable quality. I didn't have many good experiences until after my breakdown, and I was really committed to finding what I needed, right? So again, the long and short of that story is that my experience was, only when a man is really desperate for help is he willing to go out and put in the effort to find it. Whereas with Brothers and Kings, it's going to be the conversation is going to be right in front of you all the time, and you can dive in as soon and as deeply as you choose. So I'm bringing it to you, and I'm making it easy, and I'm making it cool. So that's what's next for me.
And that is the speciality of you, of yours. Make it easy and you make it cool. And that's a wonderful combination. I've talked to you before, we've had our virtual coffee, but I've never seen the unique approach. And that's also tied with who you are, your personality and the way you just love on people. It's amazing. So words of wisdom, my goodness, can you believe that we are at the final question? Any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom to carry a man forwards. I mean, there's so many things that I could say. At the end of the day, you're a person. I'll say men because that's my focus. That's my interest. A person's relationship with themselves, a man's relationship with himself, is the most important relationship you'll ever have, right? Because that relationship that you have with yourself spills out and affects every other relationship that you have with your kids, with your wife, your partner, whoever, right? With your boss, with your subordinates. The relationship that you have with yourself influences every other relationship in your life.
Amen.
And so you cannot put a price on the value of committing to yourself and figuring out who the hell you are. Yeah. And for men in particular, I believe that you can only do that with other men, right? You can, if you're married to a woman, you can confide in your wife all you want. You can lean on her. You can have that intimacy with your wife, of course. And then you're going to go back out into the world of men and you're going to hide all of that stuff and you're going to play the man role, right? Because that's what we all do to each other. Men who support each other, men who are openly vulnerable and like brothers and who give each other the space and the permission to be real and actually feel things, that's what men need. We need each other. Beautiful. So my words of wisdom are, take the time to get to know yourself and develop a great relationship with yourself, whatever it takes, and watch how that elevates every other relationship in your entire life.
Wonderful, wonderful words of wisdom. I've learned so much. I appreciate your unique views. I'm going to sit and digest it and apply those principles to my own leadership journey. And you are just an amazing, amazing guest and a perfect fit for community upliftment through leadership development. You love people. You want to help them excel. And you are a phenomenal leader in your own right. So I just want to say thank you from the Meticulous Moments audience and myself for making the time for us. Because I know you are an entrepreneur, you are very busy, and yet here you are, helping and uplifting us.
Thank you. It's been a joy to spend an hour having this conversation with you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, my goodness, there were so many golden nuggets. Take your notes, read them, apply them in your lives, and let us follow and network with Jonathan and cheer him on, because he deserves to have us there with him as he helps other people. And, it's a special thing to share a journey with someone. So from Meticulous Moments, we say thank you for joining us this evening. You know what to do, and we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.